Hey guys, it's Kelsey. I'm back with another scrapbooking process video, and for this one I really wanted to use this kind of more simple background. There's a really light text like newspaper print on the back of the kind of white, and I wanted to figure out this little cluster in the bottom left hand corner. These papers I have a love-hate relationship with. They are really useful tools to help you design your page, but on the other end, you can't just ignore what's printed on the page when it's something like this unless you just cover it up. So I'm going to use it as a tool this time around. It's kind of already marking one of my clusters, so I'm just going to embrace that and pile some more stuff on top to make it my kind of cluster. And then I decided to take these two photos, I glued them together, and I really wanted to do this big banner look. I did this before when I had P13. There's another person who used P13 and did this too. I think it was Rebecca Moore. She makes really, really beautiful layouts with P13. And I'm pretty sure she did another kind of big bannery type layout with P13. I just think it goes so well with the aesthetic. So I kind of wanted to go in that direction for this page. I thought the design of this layout with having this cluster in the lower left hand corner really lent itself well to creating this banner look in the upper right hand corner to kind of fill up the rest of the page. I already had a scrap of a wood grain from my first layout that I did, so I decided to use that as my big banner piece. And because that big banner was going to be covering up a chunk of the background, I decided for the second banner that I wanted to overlap, instead of cutting into a whole another 12 by 12, I would just gut what was behind the wood grain banner and use the background itself as another layer. So I hope that makes sense. You'll see what I end up doing, but that was my thought process. I really wanted to do a couple big banners as my base for my photo layers without having to use a lot of the paper that I have, because I'm being very frugal this month. I love P13. So I was trying to see if I could do this with just what I already had and some scraps I've already accumulated. But as you can see, I got sidetracked right in the beginning. I really wanted to figure out the cluster in the lower left-hand corner to see if this background would even work. And once I started piling stuff on, I really liked what I came up with, so I'm going to move forward with the banner. That lower left-hand corner already had like a teacup, and I really wanted to incorporate some more of the wildlife that are in this collection, so I decided to add the little mouse, which I think is really cute. And then with there being a teacup, I went ahead and layered another teacup, another banner, a couple bits and pieces from my 49 Market layering bits, and I really like how that little cluster looks down there. So I'm not going to glue it down just yet. I just wanted to make sure that what I wanted to do would work before I continued on with the rest of it. But you can see I trimmed a big banner out of that wood grain. I marked where that was going to cover on my background, and now I'm gutting what's going to be covered by the photos and the wood grain banner. So I have all of these scraps from the background to then reincorporate on this page or future pages. So it looks a little messy right now. I'm going to back that again in my scrap piece of black cardstock, and then we'll get going with the layers. But I'm surprised that worked out pretty good, and I'm actually surprised how much of that piece I have left over, because even though I create a big banner out of what I just gutted, a lot of it's covered by the photos, so I even get to gut a little bit more and save more for another layout. So hopefully you'll see that a little bit later on. But I went ahead and got my wood grain banner down. I'm trying to play with how I want these overlapped. And I kind of like how I just had it just then where it's offset to the side. I really just wanted to make sure you could see both of those fishtail banner legs at the bottom. And then I'm inking all of these layers in my Ground Espresso Distress Oxide. That paper is the background, so I want to make sure where it's overlapping the background it doesn't blend in. So having that inked edge helps that look like a separate layer and not get lost. And then when I went to glue stuff down, I realized that there's a whole nother chunk of the wood grain that's going to be covered, so I got that as well. So far I've only pulled in one wood grain paper from that paper pad this month, but I've got it used on I think all 3 pages I've made so far this month, so it's really coming in handy. And now I have even more of it that I saved for a future layout, so we'll see how I end up using that. I did want to pull in one of the layering bits from that 49 Market pack, and I found this sweet little book paper, I guess you could call it, That was a really nice size, so I'm going to use that as a layer before I get all of the banners stuck down. And this is where you can see I gutted a whole nother chunk from that banner because so little of it was actually showing around the photo. So I'm just going to stick it back down to how I had it. But this way you can see how much of that I actually got to save, which is nice. So I'm trying to just make sure I'm covering up the hole that I gut. I really like the addition of this book paper as a layer, so I'm going to ink that in my Distress Oxide as well. And I'm even gutting that because I love these little 49 Market layering bits, and I can really use any little bit for extra layers. So I'm gutting a huge section of that since you're only going to see really this outer 3 corners or edges. So stick that down as well. I thought about matting my 2 photos on just some plain white or something, but I really thought it was unnecessary. I have a whitish background. I already have a whitish banner. I really didn't think like I needed a little white mat around the photos, so I'm actually going to leave the photos bare. I like the paper layers I already have going on behind them, so I kind of feel like that's all I really need. And so now that I have the base of the banner section, I'm going to go back to my cluster. I was kind of hemming and hawing if I wanted this little rope ladder in that cluster or not. I really wanted to incorporate it, but I realized that I think I would like it better if I incorporated that into the banner sections. I was looking at this and I was like, I really like this cluster in the lower left-hand corner. I really like the banners and stuff going on by the photo, but they're not mixing. There needs to be a little bit more of that layery look going on by the photo so it all looks cohesive, because I think there's a lot of interest going on in that little corner cluster, and I need it to kind of read that way around the rest of the page. So I ended up moving this little rope ladder to be another vertical element by the banners, and that's going to be a little base for one of the clusters in the lower right hand corner of the banner. But while that glue is kind of getting tacky, I decided to go ahead and start sticking stuff down. So I'm going to ink all of these pieces in that brown. I'm going to stick that little mouse up on some dimensional foam. And I'm just going to try and stick everything back down how I had it. I'm also going to incorporate some more embroidery floss. I'm going to try and do that on like every page this month. I love the added texture that embroidery floss adds when it's like bundled into clusters. So that's another thing you will see me incorporate into that little bit. But I'm definitely not shying away from the kind of random things in this collection. There's a lot of animals. There's a lot of like tea party type things with cups and saucers and teacups. And I want to incorporate all of that. I understand this is a wedding layout and some people might not think it's on theme, but to me this collection just reads very fairy tale, and it goes for me with the vibe of my wedding. So I'm pulling in the teacups, I'm pulling in the teapot, the animals. It's reading very like Snow White meets Beauty and the Beast, and I love that, so it's just gonna work. I felt like Cinderella, so I think it's only right I have a couple of these animals on here. So just working with this, getting this cluster back down. You can see me bundling some of that embroidery floss in between some of the layers. And then I think after I get the mouse down, that cluster is kind of done. But I really used what was printed on the paper to guide me in what I added. So you can see I'm overlapping another banner and including the teacup. Even though I covered up most of what was printed, it just adds another layer. And I like how now it's a dimensional cluster that pops off the page and looks really interesting versus the one that was just printed down there in the corner. So it's totally fine if you leave it how it was and didn't add anything, but this is so much more my style, so I'm just trying to make it work for me. I think I'm almost done here. I am adding a couple pop dots behind some of the layers just so it gives you even more dimension. I don't want all these paper layers to lay flat and look like one piece, so adding little bits of foam dots in between sections so you get that lift and that dimension really makes it even more interesting for me. And now I'm trying to look at some other areas by the photo to make those just as interesting as the cluster I just did. So I have the mouse in the upper left hand corner, so I wanted to pull an animal in on the other side of the page, and with it being a larger section I wanted a larger animal, so the deer is looking into the photos, so I decided to go with that. And then I had a couple of these bits of floral clusters I saved from a previous page, so I'm going to try and get those used up. I tried tucking them in around this corner, which I really liked. but some of it hung off the edge, and I thought it looked better like this, tucked underneath the cluster, so that's what I ended up going with. I think the little floral bits really help pull in the floral detail of the mouse cluster, so I'm going to go ahead and get those stuck down. My little deer, I will also pop up on some foam. I cut out most of the process of me putting the foam on the back of the deer because it was a headache and a half getting the foam done all the little legs and stuff. But I will end up giving that a little bit of dimension too, so it kind of mimics the mouse. I'm going to go ahead and commit and get my photos stuck down. I really like how these banner clusters are looking. And then this is where I go in with the foam tape for the deer. So now that has some dimension, I definitely want to add some more embroidery floss, and I definitely want a third cluster. So with having this mouse cluster and this deer cluster towards the bottom of the page, I want one more cluster on top of the left-hand photos to create that visual triangle. There's not a whole lot of room up there though, so I'm going to have to be strategic about what I use. But as I'm looking with what I have so far, I was really determined on this layout to use some of these circle stickers. I haven't used the circle stickers at all yet this month, so I wanted to make sure to get several of them used up on this page. So I'm just picking a couple. I'm going to pop them up on some foam and include those in the 2 clusters I have so far. So for the bunny cluster, I added a little fox and the little one circle that says smile. I really wanted to pull in that warmth of the orangey tones. This is a very cool toned page with the white background, so I like having the warmth of the deer and the banner by the mouse kind of pulled around the page a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit more with those 2 bits, and I think those look really nice popped up on some foam as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stick both of those down, and then I'm going to do a similar thing over by the deer. And I decided to take the butterfly sticker and the circular sticker with like the green leaf fronds on it. But I don't know if I do that yet or not. I definitely want to add more by the deer. I was trying to see if I wanted some other types of layers similar to what I did by the rabbit. But I think with the 2 floral clusters, it'll be fine just adding circles over by the deer. But I get stuck for a minute, so I start looking at my 3rd cluster. I really also wanted to use at least one of those long skinny banners. And with wanting to pull that warmer tone around the page, I chose that more browny one with the green leaf fronds on it to come out of the top photo. And that helps ground my next cluster. I wanted to pull the teacup motif around just because I have the teacup and saucer by the mouse. And so I thought it'd be appropriate to sneak a teapot on here as well. I think it's another nod to kind of the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. So I love having that peek out of the top. And then for another little warm touch, I added a little bundle of those brown mushrooms, which I think are really cute and fairy tale-esque. So I'm going to get those stuck up there with another thread bundle. And then I think I'll revisit the deer, but I just like that little bit of detail up there. I just wanted a couple more of those cut aparts snuck in. And I think that's a perfect little mini cluster to fit up there at the top. So it just takes me a moment to get all of that together. Grabbing some more thread and making my little thread bundle. This is really fun to do and it's so easy. I don't know why I don't do thread bundles more often. I really usually wait until I have a collection like P13 to do this with, but I always enjoy it. So I don't know why I don't do it on my other pages more. But I love how that thread bundle looks behind the teapot, adding the little mushrooms back. And I think that looks really cute. So there's that cluster. I thought about adding one of the circle stickers up there too, but I think with that cluster being smaller and there's not a lot of room, I thought proportionally it would just look like there's too much up there. But I will eventually, once I get this deer stuck down, add some more of those circle stickers over by the deer. So I'm getting all the backings off of the foam tape, and then I'm adding another thread bundle. I think I had 2 thread bundles over here just because it's a bigger cluster. So I'm just trying to get them positioned so my deer, the adhesive on the deer kind of sandwiches the thread to the paper. And then this is where I go in with 2 more stickers. So I'm going to ink these as well, add some more foam tape to the back of those. And I think that rounds that cluster out really nicely. I thought about if I wanted to do a title on this page, but I really don't feel like it needs it. I don't even know what I would title this, but I'm really liking how the page looks without a title, so I'm just going to roll with it and leave it how it is. There are a couple more finishing touches I want to do. I kind of feel like it's missing that final little detail that finishes out the page, so it takes me a minute to kind of figure out what I want to do for that. But I really like how these circle stickers look added to these two bigger clusters. I think those look really sweet. So now that I have that down, I'm trying to figure out what other layery bits I want. I kind of want to add a little bit more, but I'm not sure what. So I go back, I try to look at the word stickers from P13, but I don't really see anything I want to use. But I remembered on the 49 in Market, kind of florally chipboard stuff here, there's a couple like torn word stickers that look really nice. So I did pull one that says nothing better than this, and I'm going to ink that and add it to the top just for an extra layer. I kind of think it just needed another thing up there to fill in some of that space. So I like how that little piece looks. It's so cute. So yeah, I think that is most of the layers. Now I really just need that final finishing touch. And I actually looked back on the other pages I've done so far this month and realized I used those wood veneer hearts on the one layout as a finishing touch. And I really like how that warm wood veneer looks brought in on the page. So for this one, I decided to go for stars. And so I'm going to sprinkle 3 stars in each cluster as my finishing touch on this one. I think that looks really sweet and adds to the kind of magical fairy tale quality of the page. So I'm going to get all of those stuck down. And then that's pretty much it. I love how this one turned out. I love that little left-hand corner and the banners. You can't go wrong with banners. So I was due to do another oversized banner page, and this one was just perfect. So close-ups are here in a minute. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.